to sell, donate, or transfer their water rights to a river or lake, providing a financial incentive. Utah water law does include protections to the environment, stating that a water right can only be granted if by removing the water from a river or stream, the environment will not be affected. While this part of the law has been overlooked in the past, pushing for its enforcement could return water shares to the state, thereby increasing water flows into Great Salt Lake.
The legal tool is there to force them to, but forcing it forces takings lawsuits and other things. It will simply delay the implementation of any of this for decades while it works through the courts. If it can be done through market-based transfers without violating priorities and without violating property rights, I think we'll find willing sellers who would do a variety of things. The biggest problem with that is the environmental community has trouble competing on the economic basis, and that often leaves the environment on the outs looking in.
Could a rights of nature law help Great Salt Lake? Some think so, but gaining significant public support could take time.
I think the reason we have water concerns for Great Salt Lake is because the Great Salt Lake is an afterthought if it even makes it that far. And if we can build public concern about Great Salt Lake, then that'll build up into political support.
And to me, that's the key, is if this can be couched in terms of we are trying to sustain this resource for the benefit of all of us. And I think today it probably is more feasible than ever before.
Utah isn't unique. Many nations and communities across the globe struggle to provide rights for their ecosystems. Ecuador, despite being the birthplace of the modern Pachamama movement in 2008, has yet to see the law become fully operational.
I think people in Ecuador really like the fact that we have this rights of nature law. I think they're proud that this country was the first one to include that kind of thing in their constitution. But I do believe that there's a big chasm between this law as it's written and the way that it's put into practice. For Ecuador, I think in a big way, it is left quite empty.
In 2011, a section of the Vilcabamba River in Ecuador was damaged by road construction. An American couple who owned property along the river sued and eventually prevailed in court.
If you cut down the width of the river by half, the river current picks up everything that was thrown in and takes it downstream.
Ecuador upheld its rights of nature law, making global headlines and setting a legal precedent for the application of the rights of nature. However, enforcement of the ruling has proven difficult. Very little has actually been done to restore the damaged section of the Vilcabamba River. In other places in Ecuador, the law seems to have no force, as mining activities continue with no plans for the mitigation of environmental damage.
El Ecuador, a pesar de ser el país que reconoce derechos de la naturaleza, permite que entre la minería a gran escala. En este mismo periodo, nosotros incluso hicimos un juicio contra la empresa Ecocorriente, que es la empresa que tiene el primer contrato en Cóndor Minerador para el tema de minería a gran escala. Entonces, había muchos casos que eran evidentes, el tema de la minería era evidente para un país que nunca ha tenido minería a gran escala, que de repente lo tenga teniendo derechos de la naturaleza.
Por ejemplo, en la Constitución se sostiene la defensa de las fuentes de agua y de los cauces de agua. Sin embargo, de aquello, en este momento la ley de minería dice que a las mineras se les tiene que garantizar todos los servicios, incluyendo los servicios hídricos, lo cual significa que la minera sí puede afectar los cauces y las nacientes de agua. Estas contradicciones gubernamentales tienen, de hecho, una serie de condicionantes muy difíciles para que los derechos de la naturaleza se apliquen.
Este es un caso, compañeras y compañeros.
Primero, hay gente que nunca va a aceptar que la naturaleza tenga derechos. Ya en la práctica tenemos serias dificultades, porque para los abogados y abogadas, para los jueces y juezas, es difícil dar ese paso, ¿ya? Entonces, muchos no entienden que ni siquiera se requiere un marco jurídico, leyes predeterminadas para poner en vigencia los derechos de la naturaleza, porque la Constitución abre la puerta para aplicarlos sin ley alguna. Es más, yo tengo mucho recelo de que se quiera establecer una ley que normen los derechos de la naturaleza, cuando los derechos de la naturaleza deberían permear todas las leyes.
Ecuador's world-famous Galapagos Islands lie 1,000 kilometers from the mainland. This unusual archipelago, where Charles Darwin did much of his pioneering work on natural selection, is home to a rich array of wildlife, including species found nowhere else on Earth. The islands, with their white sand beaches, animals, and tropical vegetation, are increasingly popular with tourists. In 2018, the island saw over 225,000 visitors, nearly 20 times the level from the 1960s. The population of the Galapagos has also increased from about 1,000 in the 1950s to over 30,000 people today. This human tide has created significant conservation challenges, with a greater need for freshwater supplies, electrical generation, and waste disposal. Increased construction, including that of illegal hotels and houses, pose even more challenges. Invasive plant and animal species are also threatening the Galapagos' unique biodiversity. 20 endemic species are now critically endangered.
La naturaleza que está sufriendo hoy en día por nuestra culpa, directa o indirecta.
In 1998, a special regime for the Galapagos Islands was established to help manage tourism, and a new law was designed to restrict migration to the islands. But these efforts only brought marginal improvements. A subsequent study recommended a cap on visitors, but the report was set aside, and its recommendations not implemented.
Basically, when we talk about rights of nature versus development versus human interest versus economy, all those things, it really boils down to money. It's like, what do we value? Is this worthwhile or is this worthwhile? We have now said economy is everything. And I think we're really moving farther and farther away from any kind of potential to recognize that nature itself has value and should be recognized as having rights to exist.
If tourism and development are detrimental to nature in the Galapagos, could the new rights of nature law be used to limit that development? Perhaps yes, but whether the law will be applied is another question. The money earned by tourism may limit the political will to enforce such a law.
Entonces va a ser un proceso dentro del Ecuador mismo, cómo poder implementar aquellos derechos que va a tomar posiblemente décadas.
Es como cuando existía la esclavitud en Estados Unidos, haces todo el tema de abolir la esclavitud y que el esclavo lo pasas de objeto a sujeto de derechos, ya no es legal pegarle, ya no deberías pegarle, porque es un absurdo. Entendiste que eso era un absurdo. Hoy por hoy estamos entendiendo que estas leyes que simplemente te maltratan a la naturaleza y la contaminan es un absurdo. Al tratarla como una persona deberías decir, ¿por qué no dejamos de contaminar? ¿No es cierto? Entonces es un cambio muy radical de pensar a la naturaleza como de objeto a sujeto, que tomará tiempo. Definitivamente aquí en Ecuador todavía no lo hemos podido implementar al 100%, tomará un poco de tiempo, pero para nosotros es como una de las únicas soluciones de entender cómo lograr de nuevo este equilibrio con la naturaleza y de entenderla como una persona.
So what does the future hold for the rights of nature? Changes in the legal system are a reflection of social changes, which typically take time to take root and grow. The rights of nature movement reflects a new way of thinking about the human relationship with nature, and with patience and perseverance, change can happen.
Si queremos pensar en cuál es el significado del reconocimiento de los derechos de la naturaleza, a mí me gusta pensarlo como una oportunidad, es decir, una oportunidad para empezar a generarnos preguntas que por ahí se pensaban que ya estaban respondidas en cierto sentido, empezar a ver en el reconocimiento de los derechos de la naturaleza una puerta abierta para empezar a mostrar la diversidad de formas de trabajar con la cuestión ecológica que existen alrededor del mundo y que muchas veces han sido opacadas.
Creo que fundamentalmente es reconocer a la naturaleza como nuestra madre, a todos los seres vivos como nuestros hermanos y reconocer que la sociedad no va a tener una buena salida de futuro si es que rompemos esos lazos de familia con nuestra madre y con nuestros hermanos.
Los derechos de la naturaleza son una oportunidad, yo les vería como una oportunidad para construir otra civilización. Una civilización que vaya superando definitivamente las visiones antropocentristas, que no busque que el ser humano sea el centro y el dominador de toda la naturaleza, sino que todos tengamos la oportunidad, todos los seres vivos, incluyendo los seres humanos, por supuesto, de vivir con dignidad.